All right. Here we are, going live, going live. Woohoo! The revenge against the people who struck down my latest review and analysis of the Mikodono sisters. This is my revenge tour, my light revenge tour. By coming back and talking still about the show, and hopefully not having this live stream get brought down. Hi there, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good day, wherever you are at. And let's make sure that the audio is actually going through a-okay before I go much into this. The audio seems to be coming through just fine. And Jake Branch is here first. Yes, you are indeed first. And Arts is here. Great to see you. Hello, hello. And welcome to everyone else who joins us. Say, this is going to be I intend to make it as fun as possible. A great discussion tonight about romance, the excellent writing within the show. Dealing with the Mikodono sisters is a breeze, and on top of that, because I have been working on my newest cruisy analysis video, I hope to also talk a little bit about some Deltarune tonight. So a full schedule, but my intention is to not go as late as I have been doing recently, just because there's still quite a bit to do. I'm hoping to get that cruisy video done ASAP, and there's still a lot to do. I am behind with where I wanted to be. I wanted to have this done at the end of last week, but I just got derailed. Life happens. And TV account, you are absolutely not late. You are on time. Let's see here. We haven't even been going what? We haven't even been going a full 2 minutes. So you don't need to worry. But is there a lesson today? Absolutely. There is a lesson. Our lesson will be on writing romance. And I think that a great way to lead us into that is to talk about this show, this anime that you see right before your eyes. If you haven't checked out Dealing with the Mikodono sisters, is a breeze, either the manga or the anime. I highly recommend either giving it a watch or a read. It is great. I remember I think it was like 2 years ago, maybe 3 actually, is when I first came across the manga, and the initial image for the manga seemed like really suggestive. And seeing that it was a harem involving sisters, I was like, okay, this is going to be a train wreck, and I'm all in for a train wreck. And it was just after I had started really getting into the story "Please Don't Tease Me, Miss Nagatoro," which I had started reading because I was looking for a train wreck, and it ended up being super sweet and adorable. And so I was expecting this one to be my train wreck, and then it ended up being super sweet and adorable. So I went looking for copper, and I found gold. Art says I've almost completed my manga collection for Beastars. Just trying to find number 18. How many volumes are there to Beastars? So I don't know, because sometimes you can find, like, for instance, in Arizona, if you go to a Bookman's usually has like some fantastic selections that you would be surprised. You're surprised, like, wow, who gave up this? Because it's all used books. And you can sometimes find some really good manga volumes that have been only lightly used. So 22. And there's a spin-off, but the original has 22. All right, so 22 volumes of Beastars. And that mangaka is busy. She has cranked out so many different stories. Another one of hers that's coming out real soon, and I really want to see how the anime deals with it, is a manga about Santa. About this kid who is the reincarnation of Santa and must bring Christmas back to a world where there's no Christmas. It is absolutely insane. It's really funny, but it's so hard to follow because there are way too many time skips. And not like ridiculous time skips, but there'll be like a crazy scenario introduced that either is resolved or isn't resolved, and then it jumps ahead like a week, and so you don't even really get the fallout sometimes, or you don't get the initial fallout, you get the later fallout, and you're like, I'm missing stuff. What the heck is going on? So it's really hard to follow, but it's really funny at the same time, and then it gets super dark, and then super funny, and then super dark. Like the mangaka, I feel like the mangaka took all of her pent up weirdness while working on Beastars and funneled all of that and her humor into Santa. All right, so for those of you who do not know the story of Dealing with Mikodono Sisters is a breeze, it is about a recent orphan named Yuz, the kid with red hair. And Yu is the son of one of Japan's greatest, if not the greatest, actresses. After she passed away, one of her friends, and I will put that into quotations, friends, because when you get to know Mr. Mikadono, you begin to think, did this guy actually really know Yu's mom? Or is it more like yes, another prodigy that I can add to my collection? Because he's kind of like Professor Slughorn, where he wants to have all the connections. He wants to basically have a trophy shelf of all of the kids that he's like, yes, yes, I raised those children to be amazing prodigies and successes, and here's all of the other great families that they've married into and all the other families I've helped along the way. Did I mention that I'm very important and rich and very special? Oh boy, yeah, Mr. Mikodono is a bit of a handful, but so he takes in you and just basically has him get dropped off at his house. Well, he's out on a business trip, and he's all like, "Yes, please take care of my daughters, get to know my daughters. They're prodigies just like you." And his daughters, Miwa, the youngest, Nico, the middle daughter, and then Kazuki, who's the oldest. Uh, they have a very low opinion of you, and they don't understand why their father has just dropped this kid into the middle of their lives. And especially because what the father doesn't know, at least at the beginning, but what the sisters quickly pick up on is that Yu is not like his mother. He is not a great prodigy with all of these amazing abilities and skills. He's a failed actor. He's not a great mathematician. He can't do karate. There's so many things about him that he's just not very good. The thing that you is going for him is that one, he is really cute, and he's got a bit of an androgynous look to him, which is highly prized in Japanese society because it's like, oh, I can't tell what gender you are, but you're very, very beautiful to look at. And so he's very beautiful to look at, which he doesn't really think too much of. But it's funny whenever he does decide to use it because he's just like, okay, if people are going to like judge me based on my looks, then I'll use that to my advantage. But he is insanely persistent. If he wants to do something, he is going to try his absolute best to make it work no matter what. And as a result of doing that, he's gotten really good at taking care of the house and cooking. And the reason for that is because his mom was always so busy doing her job that otherwise the house would be an absolute pigsty. And he had to take care of himself. So Yu is not any standout student. He's not a standout prodigy. He's just a good homemaker. He's a house husband in the making. Which, if you've watched or read The Way of the House Husband, then you know that Yu is an absolutely excellent He's an absolutely excellent company. So my audio's going everywhere on the spectrum. I'm not hearing that. Let me here. I'm gonna. What I'll do is I'm gonna have a quick look. There could be an issue with the internet that might be causing it, just because there is a storm that's rolling in. So maybe that's the issue. It was gargly for a minute. Well, thank you for letting me know, Arts. Okay. Well, coming coming back to after it, say again, thank you for pointing that out to me. Uh, so so coming back to it, you is basically a house husband in the making, and as an orphan, he's just like, I want to know where I belong, and and basically the way that he understands the arrangement is that he's meant to become part of the Mikodono family, not marry into it, but just become basically an adopted son. That and so he's like, okay, so I gotta become the son of the Mikodono household. I gotta become friends with the daughters and everything, which they don't want him there. Again, they look down on him. They think that he's an absolute failure. And and along the way, as they have to get to know each other, just thanks to proximity, there's a really so let's see how best to explain this. The show has already had the quote unquote meet cute, which is when the potential love interests meet each other. The meet cute already happens at the very beginning of the show when they see him at school and they reject him as a failure. And then when they see him again at the house and they reject him, they're like, what on earth is our father thinking? This is stupid. And so the sisters have already rejected you twice. But because he's at the house and there's no escaping that, one day when they come home from from their different activities, Kazuki is a performing artist. She is trying to break into the acting world. Uh, Nico is a practitioner of karate, and she is gunning for the top position as a teen karate athlete in Japan. She's her father is like, you will be the best in all of Japan. Miwa is pushing to be the first girl to get out of the circles of female shogi and even bust into male shogi. So if you're instantly like, wait, what the heck is that? Basic Japanese chess, and you've got chess for the women and you got chess for the men. For the women, they've got to dress in proper traditional kimonos and the whole shebang. And she's not that actually that she wants to, and this is important for later. Miwa's father is like, you will be the first woman to break into male shogi because you are going to dominate female shogi so insanely before you even graduate from high school that the federation will have no choice but to accept your application into the male circuit, where you will then beat all the men at shogi. So that's what the dad is envisioning for his kids. They come home from their activities late at night, and they come across you watching one of the shows that his mom acted in, a show about this woman who's just raising a family. It's meant to be a sitcom, a Japanese sitcom, and and he loves it. He's like, this is the I just want to have a stereotypical nice happy family to live in. And when the sisters arrive, he's feeling all fired up and pumped up, and he's just like, yeah, I want to be a family. The thing is that because Japanese is very vague, and this is where like sometimes as the Westerners we're like, wait, what's going on here? Japanese is a vague language. when he says he wants to become a part of the family with them, he says it right at the same time that he's watching a proposal and marriage scene in the show, and the sisters all immediately misinterpret it. And it is a blast of a scene. And what's great even is that there's a meta moment where the youngest sister Miwa is like, it's just subliminal. It's because he's watching that show. If he wasn't watching that show, none of us would be thinking right now that he was implying marriage. But the moment that the thought gets put into their heads that you might be romantically interested in them, it gets the ball rolling. And it's one of the reasons why I love this. Why I love this story is because it's not wham bam in your face. Oh my, I've totally fallen in love for you, but rather it is the notion, the idea of a silly crush getting implanted into someone's mind. And once an idea gets in there, it's like Inception. An idea just takes hold and it evolves and becomes its own thing. And before girls know it, all three of them are beginning to develop hardcore crushy feelings for you that they then have to try to navigate, all while he's oblivious to it, because again, his understanding is I'm getting adopted, not that I'm marrying into the family. ZF Studios is here. Woohoo! Great to have you here. And unfortunately, Camille is not here with us tonight, so it's just me, Lars. But yeah, Camille is right now doing the very heroic thing and going for her master's degree. She is now a very busy gal. So hopefully sometime in the future can get her back on. But if you're wondering why, for instance, some of the harem members, especially now, just don't show up, it's because of family obligations, school obligations, work obligations, and yeah. So it's just a little old me. Just our awesome Lars, says Arts. But yeah, so so coming back to the show, the show this show is just, it gets really, really fun from that point on, because what you then have proceeding for a fair amount of time is a comedy of miscommunication. Now, what I've seen from a lot of people say in our comments and on our live streams, and even within the harem itself, people are like, I don't like the trope of miscommunication, because it's a cheesy way to create. It's a quick and cheesy and oftentimes unearned way to create drama. And one of the reasons why so many people reject it is because in the real world, in real life, when you have so much miscommunication going on, you eventually get to the point where people are all like, wait, slow your rolls. We missed something. Can we figure things out? And so people reconcile, figure out what's going on, and the miscommunication is overcome. That's what happens in real life. In fiction, when it goes on for too long, it ends up being really annoying. And that's actually going to be a little bit essential to tonight's lesson, which is on romance. But what I like about dealing with Mikadono sisters is that the miscommunication is something that is overcome within time, but it's also something that the characters in many ways have good reason not to reconcile. Because, for instance, Yu does not view the girls in a romantic way for a long time, because again, he is the adopted brother. It's like, we're not going to have any of this, oh no, stepbrother, please no. We're not going to have any of that weirdness running around. So we're avoiding the stepbrother the stepbrother nonsense. Because you is a freaking class act. That's why. And the sisters, the sisters do not want to expose their crushes on the boy because because well, there's a lot going to it. Want us to understand about Japanese society. They are all celebrities, and celebrities who end up in relationships that are not seen as appropriate, especially with someone who is considered below your status, is very frowned down upon. Should their father find out, you gets kicked out of the house. Should their classmates find out, they you will get ostracized, which is a huge deal and very unpleasant. Should the public find out, there will be an uproar. And so, because of that, the sisters cannot let people know that they have feelings for a boy who is a failed actor. And so as a result of that, yeah, there's a reason for why these characters aren't reconciling. It's annoying, but it works. And what's fun about it is that as the story progresses, each sister goes out of her way to find some kind of way of trying to impress upon you how she really feels, trying to come up to that line. And eventually it does click with him. And when it does click, then that's really when the story starts taking off, because you have this really crazy love geometry going on with sisters who all respect and love each other, but are very adamant about getting the man. And so it's neat to see. And before you even get to that, the first season is not even so much about who gets together with you. The first season is actually about you helping the sisters rediscover themselves and rediscover their sisterly relationships, because the father, in his oppressive ways, has absolutely torched that relationship. TVCon says, how will this stream last? I'm sorry for saying rude, but there's so much happening right now, and I don't know if I'll be here for long. Well, TV account, if you've got to go, that's absolutely fine. The stream should be up, barring it doesn't get taken down. Should be up, so that way you can come on and watch it again later. I'm guessing I will probably go on for about another hour and a half, maybe a little bit more is my guess. So we'll see. Yeah, as Art says, if you need to go, the stream will be archived. Hopefully. I am hoping, because I'm right now using a lot of footage that hasn't been flagged. But I do have some footage that was in the previous video. I manipulated it a little to try to compensate, because it's great footage. It's from one of the best episodes of the show, which is the theme park date. Holy cow, so much fun. Now then, let's see here. Where to go from here? Yeah, actually, let me then jump to talking about the most recent episode and why it's such a shame that it got flagged and pulled down. The theme park episode takes place after Yu has already been helping out Kazuki and Nico, the eldest and middle daughters, with various issues. Kazuki, who is famous for performing male roles as an actress, she is now being forced by her father to act as a heroine in an upcoming play. And she has no idea how to do that, because she has gotten so much into the male roles that the idea of femininity, like, it's not that she doesn't know what femininity is, but it just doesn't come naturally to her. She's very much a tomboy. And so she convinces you to go out on a date with her so that way she can practice playing the role of the heroine and how to be a girl. It's incredibly beautiful. It's one of the better anime takes on what it means to be a girl, what it means to be girly. And it's patched, and it's that's not patched with, it's paired off with Nico's story for the next two episodes afterwards really, really well. Nico, who is forced to be a tomboy by her father when she really actually wants to be far more feminine. So as opposed to her older sister, who's like, I don't understand feminine really because I always act masculine, and her younger sister is like, I really just want to be a girly girl. But no, I have to always do karate. I always have to dress grungy. I always have to appear strong and masculine in some kind of way. And you is like, you can be whoever you want to be. And it leads to some really fun shenanigans, especially when a guy who's crushing on her comes and tries to spirit her away to go to his school and to his karate club. And the father, meanwhile, is like, yes, yes, oh, I'm already arranging their marriage. She will marry Tatsumi, and when that happens, it will be a dynasty of karate children. Oh, like again, the dad's a piece of work, and he's hardly in the story, but you can feel his presence throughout it. Holy cow! And that's good writing. When an antagonist is barely in the story, and you can feel their presence because their actions have serious consequences, even though most of their actions might be off screen. And that's honestly really good writing. So uh, so Yu's helped out Kazuki, he's helped out Nico, which then leads to the theme park date because Yu convinces their father to allow them to have a day off after all the hard work that they've put in. And so the girl's like, "Where do you want to go?" And he's like, "I want to go to the theme park." Because I've never had the chance to go. My mom was always working. I couldn't just go as a little kid. And it's better to go with people that you like. So let's have a family outing. And the girls are like, this is not a family outing. This is war. We like each one's all like, I will make his heart skip a beat, and then he will finally notice me. Me. So the girls are all competing to see who can get you to notice them romantically, and they each have their own strategy utilizing an element of the theme park. And it was so much fun to watch, especially as someone who loves going to fairs, who loves going out on all the rides. Oh, look at that. How did some footage from Don to Don get in here? Not that I'm complaining, because Don to Don's great. Oh my, look at that. Look at that lewd hand holding. Anyways. Uh, so theme park shenanigans. Kazuki decides that she's going to get you to be the big boy and to cradle her in his arms, even though this guy is like half her size. By pretending to be scared when they go to a haunted house, but he ends up being the one who is scared, and she's got to cradle him. And I mean, lucky guy, because yeah, his face gets to go into the valley of soft pillows, though not necessarily what he wanted, because again, he just sees himself as the adopted brother. Nico decides that she is going to get him to that she is going to orchestrate a way for her to fall into his arms by taking him to the teacups and spinning it really, really fast. The problem is with the teacups is that both people can operate where you spin and how fast you spin. And I have done this before at the fair, where you spin it really hard one direction, and then someone grabs the wheel, brings it to a halt, and spins the other way. You throw people, and you don't throw people in this way. And so while Nico's like, haha, I'm spinning us really, really fast, I'm going to fall into his arms, he takes the wheel, he spins, and he nearly throws himself out of the teacup. And she's got to haul him back in. Art says, I want to see you and the sisters go to Spirit of Halloween. That would be amazing. That's a fanfic in the making right there. I'd read that. And the Miwa, her plan is to go on a roller coaster and then pretend to be really weak afterwards, so that way he will pick her up and support her, and then she can then use him as a lap pillow. The unfortunate thing for her is that she can handle the roller coasters. He cannot. He's got a weak stomach, and so she ends up having to cradle him because he gets so faint. And oh my gosh, I love it. I have been in those situations where I've gone on rides with people and they've gotten faint from the ride. As of right now, of 36 years of life, I have never gotten faint from being on a roller coaster. I love roller coasters. So that's a foreign sensation to me. But you unfortunately goes faint. I've seen other people who've also grown really weak from roller coaster rides. It's a real thing, and you need to support them because otherwise they go boom and crash into the ground. It's not a pretty sight. So, so the sister's like, "Oh crud, the rides haven't worked for us. So let's try the food because there's all kinds of romantic options for food at fairs as well." And it all work out because you is just too fast. Well, because he wants to enjoy all the food, and so they keep missing all of the opportunities to do the stereotypical, oh, you've got some cream on your cheek. Here, wipe it away and then like lick it like really knowingly, like it's almost an indirect kiss. Mhm. Which preview for the cruisy video, I talk about indirect kisses, and I did not realize until going back through everything, there are at least three indirect kisses related to Chris and Susie. And I'm like, that's wild. That's wild. And for Toby Fox, who knows his anime tropes and likes to make fun of them and everything, the fact that he used three indirect kisses thus far is insane. Like at this point, they might as well just be playing tonsil hockey. But yeah, so Miwa misses her chance to have basically an indirect kiss with you. Kazuki gets cold feet with when it comes to drinking a sugary creamy frappe with you, and then it actually goes over Nico's head to try to have a kiss or an indirect kiss with you because it's her very first time eating churros. Arts. The other one is the TV screen. It's implied that Susie also licked the same TV screen that Chris licks. And that was actually pointed out to me by someone who got a screenshot of of the fourth time that we get to see Susie's really like affectionate smile. And it comes about if you and I didn't get this through either of my playthroughs of the game. But if you're supposed to have a certain interaction with the TV, you allow Susie the chance to lick it, apparently, and then when Chris goes and does it, then and Susie brings it up, and you choose the option. Well, obviously, like that, you get the rainbow effect when you lick the screen. She responds with the affectionate look of course you did, and I was like, that's an indirect kiss. Susie, you dog. And Susie's even more blatant about it with the soda can because there's no reason for her to leave the half drunk soda can behind. There isn't. I mean, yes, it's funny because she stole it because supposedly she stole it. Actually, very likely she did steal it, and then drank half of it. And you only heal 20 HP if you drink it. But she still left behind a soda can for you to pick up and drink. And we already know that she freaks out when when Chris took a bite of the apple that she had bitten out of. And Art says Susie mentions she doesn't trust anyone who doesn't eat her spit in chapter 1. Yeah, yeah. No, at this point now, Chris has consumed Susie's spit several times. Susie knows that she can trust Chris. All right. So but yeah, so coming back to what was originally my breakdown of dealing with Mikadono Sisters is a Breeze, episode 5, not episode 5. Episode 9, the theme park episode. The big takeaway from that episode was that the writers understood a lot of the tropes that are involved with kids going to the fair in anime and manga. Like we didn't get fireworks. We didn't get fireworks. That's one of the tropes that wasn't used. But so many of the others were in there, from the haunted house to sharing the meal, the indirect kisses with the cream, the getting woozy from the rides, the lap pillows. We didn't have a kid go missing. That's another big one that's usually done. But it uses a ton of tropes. And rather than trying to overtly subvert them or reject them, which is usually what people do to try to make the tropes feel fresh and new, dealing with Mikadono Sisters, instead was like, okay, what if we actually went through with each one of those tropes, but it was a failure because of one of the characters either misunderstanding something or doing something unexpected. So we still utilize the trope, but the expected result is different. As a result, while using a tried and true trope, which a lot of people would say is lazy, it ends up feeling far more refreshing and interesting because it didn't rely on just simply following through with the formula. And that's one of the important things when it comes to writing romance, is that you can follow the formula. There's all different kinds of patterns and ways in which people say, if you write a romance like this, it will be a success. And my response to that is yes. But then you're following a formula rather than following a story that you want to write with characters who should be feeling real, relatable, engaging. Real and engaging characters do not simply follow a formula. And a good way, and here's actually a good way of thinking about this. The Marvel formula, quote unquote, is still in use. And yet loads of Marvel movies these days underperform or flat out bomb. Why is that? They're still following the formula. It's because the characters are not being properly respected to be made engaging, three-dimensional, interesting individuals who feel like they have autonomy. And so that's what the Mikodono Sisters does, is that while it follows certain tropes and certain formulas, it at the same time understands its characters and never sacrifices its characters for the tropes, but rather forces the tropes to conform to the characters, to highlight their personalities and their choices. Let me take a quick drink of water here. Oh yeah, Chris absolutely beat Noelle to the punch before chapter 1. And if there's any one critique to the lob at Noelle when it comes to romance, it is that Noelle plays it always too safe. She never engages until way later on. As a result, if you're paying attention, Noelle is actually behind. And it's one of the interesting aspects of the who's going to end up with who part of Deltarune. Because there are definite romantic routes that are being teased out. That it isn't just Toby ship baiting, it's actually part of the story. And Noelle and Susie is very central to that. But Noelle is always, always, always reactionary. Whereas Chris, as we've come to learn, in the newsletters, and especially what we learn from the weird routes is that Chris is proactive and Susie is proactive. This doesn't mean that Noelle can't end up with Susie. And that doesn't mean that she's safe from ending up with Chris if someone plays the weird route. Oh yikes. Uh but what this would tend to say is that that particular ship of Noelle and Susie has actually even further to go in order to be a success because one of the important players within that relationship does not make a move of her own volition, with the exception, and there's only one exception to this, Noelle giving chalk to Susie. Or says Noelle is only interpreting Susie on the surface level while Chris has made an attempt to dig deep. Yes. Oh, absolutely. And when we think about again what's shown in the game, and this is very apparent in by the end of chapter 4, Susie has laid bare who she is to Chris and to Ralsei. And she shared even more with Chris by this point. Chris and Susie are absolutely best friends by the end of chapter 4. And it's not just that, but there is a very clear path for them to become romantic. And the festival is going to be where so much of that swings and changes. And just thinking about for it, and so it's like to like bring actually these two different stories together. The theme park, the journey to the festival, this is where romance blossoms. Thinking again, Japanese storytelling, Japanese tropes, which Toby knows very well. Romance can happen at the fair or at the park, but it comes down to the choices that the characters make, married to the situations that they find themselves in at that park. And you can see how that plays out for the sisters and you by watching the show or reading the manga. We don't yet know what's going to happen over in Deltarune at the fair because I mean we haven't gone there yet. We can only guess, but some of the stuff that we can already start piecing together uh, is that we're going to have definitely something going down. Yep, at a Ferris wheel. Caddy is going to try to rescue Noelle from Susie. Erdley thinks that he's going to be dating someone. Let's not forget that Pizza Pants is showing up to the fair expecting to go out on a date. And Chris is caught in the middle of all of this. Depending on the route you've played, Susie has either told Carol that she's taking Noelle to the fair, or Chris is taking Noelle to the fair. Noelle is going to the fair, and Noelle is poor Noelle. My personal thinking is that if we go the weird route, um, if we go the weird route, I think Susie's going to have her heart broken by the end. If you go normal route, Noelle is going to have her heart broken. And that'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. Carol's going to be watching Noelle like a hawk at the festival. I suspect that Carol is going to be somewhere with binoculars watching everything. Talk about your helicopter parent. Oh, TV Gown here says, do you believe what Goose said that episode 7 or later might have its own rose diamond moment? What do you think? So I haven't heard that Gooseworks said that there will be a rose diamond moment. I was just today watching a video about how the next episode could be a flashback episode. I don't know if I exactly buy into that just yet. What I do know from what everyone has been saying and from what Gooseworks apparently has posted is that the show is going to take a very different direction in the last 3 episodes, which I think is really cool. And I think that she's already laid the groundwork for that change. There is, however, and so if you ask me what I think, TV account, this is what I'm going to say is that if you change your story 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through to become something else, you need to have laid the groundwork to ensure that the change makes sense, even if it comes out of left field at the initial watch or read. A really good example of this, hey, Hannah, having great to have you here tonight. A great example of this is in the Mistborn trilogy. At the end, so the first book has a massive change at about the 5/6 point. So that's even further than 2/3 or 3/4. Like we're coming into the end game, and suddenly everything changes, and it's like, wait, what? But it makes sense. Brandon Sanderson laid the groundwork to make sense of what is going on, despite just how insanely hard the thing turns left and goes in a very different direction than what you thought it was going to do. He then pulls the same stunt again in the second book when it goes from high fantasy mystery, hijinks, what and whatnot, and a political thriller to basically becoming a cosmic horror. And you're like, "Wait, what?" But all the details necessary were there in the story. You just didn't realize it was about to take that turn. Doing something like that, it's really, really hard to pull off because it means that you've been laying a very intentional trail of breadcrumbs that the audience should be able to follow without calling attention to the fact that you've laid the breadcrumbs. And that's very hard to pull off as a writer. And then there's other times as a writer where you think you're being very apparent, and then people are like, "Oh no, I didn't see that coming at all." You're like, "Wait, what? I thought it was being so blatant. I thought there was no mystery at all." And that's one of the conundrums of being a writer. You're so close to your story that you really need to get outside opinion in order to know if your trail of breadcrumbs for the big twist actually is working or not. TV Ken says, but the real question, which part of that moment could she be implying? Because I remember people freaking out about the plot twist, even calling it a retcon, I think. Well, no one has yet seen what the plot twist is. So no one can call it a retcon until we've actually seen it. So I'm not going to get too worried just yet. Let's see what happens. From what I understand, the next episode is going to drop the story of Ribbit, who Ribbit was, and their relationship to Jax. And so we'll see what happens there. I'm very curious to see what happens with a flashback episode, because here's the thing with flashbacks. Flashbacks can work, but flashbacks usually should be used sparingly. And if you use too much of a flashback, it can be very not overwhelming. Even with flashbacks often being very revelatory, it hampers the pacing of the story and could really derail that feel that things are actually moving anywhere for the Amazing Digital Circus. And with only 3 more episodes to go, there's a lot of the plot of the world building to cover if Gooseworks wants to make any sense of all of the different things that she's been setting up. And so this is going to be a real test to Gooseworks' ability to tell a story. And I mean, so far, I've been very impressed with the Amazing Digital Circus. I think it's great. But even a great author can still make a mistake, which I think is where people's fears are coming from. I personally am just very interested in seeing what Gooseworks is going to deliver. Art says maybe Ribbit was the proto Jax and taught Jax to be how he is now. Possible. That would definitely be on brand for the Amazing Digital Circus, a cutesy character being way more annoying and awful than their appearance would suggest. Excuse me, take a drink of water right there. What about the way flashbacks work in BoJack Horseman? They were very fluid. Not having seen a whole lot of BoJack Horseman TV account, I can't really comment on that. But yes, you can make flashbacks work very fluidly. A good example that I know of is like watching, for instance, Arthur, which has very short episodes with constant flashbacks or cutaways to imagination. And always the flashbacks or the cutaways to imagination complement whatever is happening there in the moment. Flashbacks should be used to complement the story happening in the present, and they're either used sparingly or they are utilized tastefully throughout. If you read the Stormlight Archive books, there are tons of flashbacks throughout those books, and the flashbacks are used constantly to make sense of where a character is in that moment. Hollyhock having multiple fathers. LOL. Oh boy. Ah, yes. Oh, like I. This just immediately made me think of something here. Arts has absolutely nothing to do with BoJack Horseman, or with dealing with Mikadono sisters, or the Amazing Digital Circus. But this week, I got to see the cutest video of a grandma cat meeting kittens, and not just like, oh, this is an old cat, but that cat, this Maine Coon cat, is the direct grandmother to that litter of kittens. And it was so adorable because mama cats are not happy when other people are around their kittens, especially right after they've given birth. They're very, very protective. So you have this old Maine Coon who comes on in, smells the kittens, and then keeps a proper distance, goes and checks on the mama cat. They share a moment, and then she leaves, and then she stays in the room watching everything, but maintains a respectful distance between herself, the mom, and the kittens. And so the kittens know that there's another cat there. The kittens, they're dumb and small. They don't really understand what's going on there. But the mom knows, and the mother cat is very calm, is purring, while the grandma cat is very regal. And she's like, yes, yes, that's my progeny down there. It is just such a cute video. Highly, highly recommend checking it out. Let me see if I can actually. Let me see if I can find that video. I'll put a link for it in the chat because it's just so cute. Let's see here, Maine Coon grandma cat, and there we are. Grandma meets grandkittens. I mean, I will not. I will not be. I will not be sad if anyone suddenly jumps ship for this particular video, just because I know it's absolutely cute. All right. So let's see here. I kind of said my thing for the Mikodono sisters. Definitely gush more about it if you guys wish. We can dive on into the lesson tonight, or we can talk first about some of the theory crafting that I have for Deltarune, especially in light again of having working currently on my upcoming cruisy analysis, which my goal is to have that ready this weekend. So, because man, we are way behind. Listen, I am way behind on where I ought to be. I do have, once this cruisy video is done, I do have a Gerson script written up that I need to edit and go through again. Though pretty much the evidence that I was looking for is there that it's highly likely that Gerson went to the Dark World and that he has a history there, which is awesome. So we got one vote for Deltarune, please. Anyone else want to hear more about Mikodono sisters? So we jumped over to Deltarune. We do the writing lesson. Gerson has become the GOAT for a lot of Deltarune fans. Oh, yes, he should be. Gerson is amazing. He is such a good character. Holy cow! And one of the things, so I'll just say that I'll say this right here. One of the reasons why Gerson works so well as a character is because Toby really took and ran with the idea of the mentor figure and decided rather than to kill the mentor figure, the mentor is already dead. Now, that's not necessarily a premise that is 100% new. If you read Faraway Paladin, that's the exact same premise that you have this young boy who is raised by three mentors, all of which are dead, uh, which is super crazy and cool. Really enjoy the Faraway Paladin. Great story. The unfortunate thing is that the author is right now on hiatus, and no one knows why or for how long. So don't expect that series to get completed anytime soon. uh, Art says Lynx Griffin did a Gerson comic for her Eldritch Rune comic. It was pretty cool. Ooh, that'd be fun to check out. Toby Fox gave us his version of our from Final Fantasy X. Having never played Final Fantasy X, unfortunately, I cannot comment on that. But I will absolutely take your word for it, Arts. I've only let's see here. I've done final. Let's see here. I've been there for Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, and Final Fantasy 15. Yeah, those are the Final Fantasies that I've actually either sat down to watch or I've sat down to play. So I am behind. I am behind on my Final Fantasy lore. But so making Gerson already dead and knowing that he's dead suddenly makes him way more interesting because he knows he has limited time. And what makes Gerson amazing is that rather than grabbing Chris and Susie, it's all like, listen, guys, listen, you need to know these things. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do it at all. Instead, what Gerson does is he creates scenarios that help that not necessarily forces but encourages the protagonists, the heroes, to learn for themselves, to learn important truths going forward. And he never pushes them beyond what they're ready for. The most that Gerson gets to in terms of forcing them anything is that when they get to one of the big moments of the prophecy, he hurls his hammer and shatters it. And he's just like, oh, whoopsies. And he's like, oh, the prophecy, that thing. Yeah, that's nifty, isn't it? But I always prefer being able to do your own thing, you know. But he never says, "Don't follow the prophecy; it's a horrible idea," or "You have autonomy, you have freedom, you should choose it." Determination, this determination, that. No, he's just all like, you can make choices if you want, and you can choose to follow this, or you can choose to do something different. What do you want to do? No bad choices, no wrong ways. Make a choice. And that's his prompt, and then you go from there. And Gerson just always adapts and reacts to what the heroes choose to do in order to provide them with a learning opportunity, even if it doesn't seem at first like it is a learning opportunity. That's what he's offering. And let me quickly read what ours is right here. Aaron died before the story began. Apparently, death is a mere inconvenience in that world. You can still walk around as an unsent. Ooh, that's a cool. That's a cool title for someone who's still walking around though dead, unsent. That's awesome. Uh, yeah, you know what? Let me actually pull up if I can the moments in the game where you have the tea party with Gerson. Let me see if I can find my clip of that. I might be off with this one. We'll find out. Let's see here. Either I get to it or I don't. We'll see. We will roll with it as we do. Uh, so in any case, the tea party scene with Gerson is an interesting one because it's actually a teaching opportunity that you don't realize is a moment where he's trying to teach. And it took me a moment. As a former teacher, it's like I am kind of chagrined that I didn't immediately spot it. But what Gerson is trying to do in that scene is he is getting Susie to warm up to him, and not by all like, "Hey, fellow kids, how are you doing?" But instead creating an opportunity for them to sit down, relax for just a moment, talk things over, and he lets Susie do the talking. He lets Susie get into it. And as Susie's like, "Hey, you know what? This person's like letting me do my thing, say my thing. This old man's kind of cool. Yeah, he's weird, but you know what? He's cool." And so Susie warms up to him, and he's like, and that's part of what he's doing there. But the thing is, he's actually trying to get to Chris and to Ralsei. He's trying to impress upon Ralsei that choices do count for something. And for Chris, the interesting thing is this is that Chris is controlled by the player. And Chris is put into a situation where it's like, okay, well, what kind of autonomy can Chris exactly show in this moment? We know, thanks to all four chapters, that there's moments where Chris can wrest control away from the player. But Chris normally does that only if it's a moment of like real need, like Susie's in danger, or something is going terribly wrong, or they decide to rip out the player's soul in order for them to do whatever the plot needs for Chris to do. So Chris can show autonomy, but otherwise, Chris doesn't really do that. So what exactly then can Gerson teach to Chris? Well, Gerson's like, you can make a choice. What is it that you really want? Do you want to have this tea? Oh, you don't really like the tea? Well, maybe you just need it differently. Put the little sugar cube. There you go, and you can drink the tea, and Chris will enjoy it. Though the word kind of implies that the dregs aren't all that great. But there's another option. If you don't choose the tea, whether the tea has the sugar cubes or not, Gerson then offers an apple. And in that case, when the apple is provided, Chris goes full gusto and eats the apple. Now, that might just seem okay. This is an interesting little scene. What exactly, like, what's the lesson that's being taught there? Gerson is communicating to Chris through the most simple and small means. You have a choice. Now, granted, the player can still force Chris to do something that Chris might not want to do. But the moment that something is put in front of Chris that Chris actually wants, such as the apple, Chris goes for it. And Gerson's like, that's right. When you see something that you actually want, Chris, go for it. Don't let the player take control. Don't let someone else dictate what you should do. Make your own choice. And that's an important, very subtle lesson because at the end of chapter 4, no matter what route you've chosen, Chris is put in a bind. Chris wants to go with Susie. Chris wants to spend more time with Susie. That is not me being subjective, that it's objective. That is in the game. And yet it's not so simple because Chris has promised. Chris has promised to go along with Carol's scheme, whatever that is. If you do the weird route, you're already going through with it. Noel is so excited to go to the festival with you tomorrow. If you don't do that route, Carol's like, Chris, remember the promise you made. We've got things that we need to do. So you got to make sure that you're doing them. And while I would argue that Chris joined up with Carol originally to pursue something that they actually want, which I believe is them, which is them finding Des. At this point in the story, Chris wants different things now. Chris wants to continue spending time with Susie and make Susie's dreams come true. Chris is becoming friends with Ralsei. Ralsei is important to Chris, even if there's some wonkiness with the understanding of lightners and darkners. Chris knows a little bit more about what's going on, obviously, than they're letting on, and so does Ralsei. We now understand why. I think we understand now better why Chris might have been wary of Ralsei going into chapter 2, at least a little ways, because Ralsei's following the prophecy. Chris knows what the prophecy is as well, at least to a certain degree, and is all like, so why are you going along with this? I think that there was kind of that apprehension, that mistrust. And by the end of chapter 4, there is trust between Chris and Ralsei. And Chris, I think, sees better routes towards making things happen. As Art says right here, the normal route seems like they're improvising. The weird route seems like Carol's happy because Chris and Noel being together again is good enough for her. It's bringing the families back together again, and there's got to be a better way of bringing the families back together. I think that Chris sees that, but Chris feels powerless to make those choices. And coming back again to the whole tea party and the apple, Gerson's like, no, you have a choice. You have a choice. You are currently in the dark. Your eyes are closed. You're in the dark. You don't know where to go, but you can still make a choice. And that is emphasized again and again and again in chapter 4 with how dark everything gets. It's always, there's so many dark mazes and dark options, places you can't see. Things become impossible to navigate because of the darkness. And yet, by walking into those areas, by making choices, by navigating, even if you're bumbling around, you eventually get to where you need to be. And that's what Gerson is trying to communicate. Make those choices. Go on ahead. You know what you want. Do it. And that's one of the reasons why Gerson, I believe, is just such a phenomenal character, is that we are getting taught. He is a teacher. He's an amazing teacher. And he does it without doing the stereotypical teacher things. He's very encouraging. He's very liberating to his students, where he basically facilitates their education of themselves. And he only supplies the necessary information that they need when they need it, rather than heaping a bunch of information on top of them and saying, well, you'll get it later. Like when I was a teacher, our model was introduce goals and procedures and expectations. You then lecture. You then turn the lecture over to the students. You present an assignment. You present a time limit to that assignment. Students complete the assignment. Students report on the assignment, and then you return to the lecture. That was the pattern, and it works. It makes things flow. But there's always the question of how many kids are actually getting it. Gerson, on the other hand, is all like, screw the model. I want people to learn because they want to learn. And the best way for me to facilitate that is to encourage questions. So I present opportunities and encourage them to learn. And then I'll see what they do. And I'll comment on that and provide necessary backup where needed. Art says, it's why I believe his teaching method was more action than inaction, i.e. opening a fountain and let them have at it. Yeah, exactly. Des and Fred were more than willing to oblige. Yep. Yep. I think this is right now one of my working theories for like what led to Des and Azrael, and then eventually also Chris getting involved in the Dark World, is that I think based on what Gerson says in the battle against him, is that he could never get beyond a certain point. We don't know why. We don't know why he couldn't get beyond that certain point, which is the next chapter. And I think one of the reasons why we're going to realize that maybe he could make it beyond what's ultimately the fifth chapter is because it's going to be so heartbreaking. It's going to be so just, it's going to turn our understanding, I think, on its head. It's going to be amazing and it's going to be heartbreaking and it's going to be scary. That's what I'm expecting for going into chapter 5. Holy cow. And and so and so because Gerson could make it beyond that point, he's like, okay, I will then open. Obviously, the next generation has to do it. Father Alvin either never went to the Dark World or was never able to finish it. I am of the belief that Father Alvin has gone to the Dark World. He knows what the Dark World is. I think Father Alvin knows everything that's going on, and for some reason has chosen not to intervene. And I think that to a certain extent, he's even in on Carol's plans. But for whatever reason, Alvin never finished his father's task. He bowed out, and that's been a splot of shame on his record ever since. So then comes up the generation after. We then have Des and Azrael going into the Dark World. We have excellent evidence that they went into the Dark World, that they interacted with everything. There's a very good chance that they're the reason why King and Queen got to know each other and very likely had Lancer. Yay. They went to the Dark World. We know also that Chris has a save file or accessed a save file at the very opening of the game. Someone was there beforehand, and we see the markings of the roaring there previously. Does the roaring go back to the time of Gerson? Does it go back to the time of Alvin? Does it go back to the time of Des and Azrael? We don't yet know. But what we do know is that this story has been going on multiple times. And now it's going through again with people determined to see this prophecy through to the end. And that's something I find very interesting, is that the prophecy isn't a ticking time bomb that's dragging everyone along with it. It is something that's actionable. And that's important. Oh, that's so important. Because I think the reason why Carol is going along to try to fulfill the prophecy is that because she has learned that the prophecy only reacts according to your action, that she feels that with her plan, that it will work, that they can make the prophecy work to their favor. We don't know all the details as to why that is, because it's still kind of weird. Like, why would you risk the roaring? Do they have to risk the roaring in order to manifest death, in order to pull her on back? Or could it be, as we learn in chapter 4, that that within the Dark World, so much more is possible. You can bring Lightners back to life. What if they need a certain amount of darkness in order to overwrite what has happened to Des, so that way Des can be saved? That's a possibility, and that works within the mechanics. That's not just some airy speculation. That's grounded within the world building that we know. And so, yeah, that like Gerson. So coming back to Gerson understands these mechanics. He knows to a certain degree what's going on. He has seen generations go into the Dark World and confront the prophecy, and no one has yet succeeded. And rather than trying to beat it his way or go along with it his way, Gerson instead empowers Chris, Susie, and Ralsei to go forward their way, and in the hopes that that will allow someone to finally confront the prophecy and overcome it. And by the way, this is me putting in 10,000 dark dollars because I wanted the gold spider armor. So Stormcrow says, want us to wonder just how old is the concept of dark worlds? Is it something specific to hometown, or can anyone anywhere create a dark world? So Stormcrow, the answer I believe lies in the story of the fallen star, which we only get a brief glimpse of, at least to my knowledge. Maybe there's more, but I've only seen the glimpse of it when you go for the egg in chapter 4. It's a very, very interesting detail that's been dropped. Desnazi going to a love hotel dark world. Oh boy, yikes, that's spicy. Arts for sure. Alvin probably just couldn't stand to see his father again because it wouldn't be the same. Yeah, I could see that. And it's interesting because Alvin brought up the hammer. And okay, another bit of theory crafting right here. I believe that Alvin got kidnapped at the end of chapter 4. I do not expect us to see Father Alvin in chapter 5, especially if we go to the church. I think he's been kidnapped. I think he's been taken to the shelter, the same as Undyne. Because it's very, very likely that the sacrifice isn't just to get rid of one person, but it's probably multiple people who have to be sacrificed. And I think that that's what's going on there. So yeah, yikes. And I think that Alvin knew that that was coming, which is why he dug up his father's hammer and left it out. You know, like, okay, if the Roaring Night comes for me, my dad, the Dark Fountain will be opened. My father will come back. It's going to be Gerson, the warrior of legend. He can do something. And the interesting thing is that Gerson does not come charging into battle until at the very end. Rather, instead, he allows again the heroes to do their thing. Even though Gerson could easily wipe the floor with everything just by himself. Excuse me. Woo, dinner coming back for revenge. I'm disagreeing with something that ate me. Gerson could have handled this all mostly by himself, other than the whole soul pit and closing down the Dark Fountain. He needs Chris for that. But rather than using Chris, Gerson empowers Chris, and he especially empowers Susie. Stormcrow says, yo, hold up. Imagine a Final Fantasy VI style twist where maybe in Chapter 6, the penultimate episode, excuse me, the roaring goes down, and we have to play in a post-apocalyptic world in order to save the world. Very interesting. That'd be very interesting to see play out. I definitely give that a try. It says, I think something from the dark world infected her like a cancer, and they're using the prophecy as a means to cure the cancer. For Des, you know what? I can see that. Something definitely happened to Des that has fundamentally changed her. And changed her in a way that that the others just cannot. Let's hear. No, yeah, just say like they can't fix on their own. Well, duh. But it's that what has happened with Des is something that like they can't like. Des is still alive. They could still go to her, but they want to get her obviously back to the light world. Des can to some degree enter the light world. And we know that Des has been going around opening up dark fountains, which means that she's been traveling very likely through the light world, though because Des has been pulled into weird timey-wiminess. There's also, and we also have the data mine stuff about her being lost in the code. And because Jevel's like, this is all a game, I think that very likely the actual answer is that Des has been traveling through the darkness, through the code of the game, in order to get to all the locations necessary to open up the dark fountains to fulfill the prophecy and to push Chris and Noel along the planned path in order to get the roaring underway, because something about that is going to allow them to really contact Des and hopefully have the power necessary to undo whatever happened to her. Art says, yeah, so the cancer, Stormcrest says, okay, thought concerning Carol. I think the reason Carol isn't visiting Rudy in the hospital is because she's waiting for him to die and then bring him back in her dark world. Well, that's really dark and messed up. What's to say that Carol hasn't been visiting Rudy? So I'm going to say that I think I think that Rudy has been. I think that Rudy is in on way more of what's going on than excuse me than we're immediately ready to accept. I think that Rudy knows the plan for Noel and for the Dark World, and I think that he is playing his own part. As sad as that sounds, because I love me a good reindeer dad, I think that Rudy is in on it. Art says Rudy isn't too fond of Carol in church. That's actually not the way that I read it, because when Toriel said only refers to her as Mayor Holiday, Rudy corrects her and says Carol. The way that I read it, uh, the way that I read it is that he's like, no, that's my wife. He doesn't acknowledge her as his wife. Okay, you know what? Let's get that. Let's get that the good game footage. Then, okay, all right. Oop, nope, nope, nope. Let's pull back right here. All right, a little bit further. Okay, talking with Father Alvin about banging Sir Man. Yeah, no. So let's take the moment and actually have a look at the scene, because granted, it's a little bit difficult because if you're not careful, it's very easy to run out of the dialogue real fast. So let's get there. Let Alvin say his spiel. You wish to speak to me? Your father. He typically comes here at night. We praise much for you, Chris. For Azrael, Toriel, Rudy, and his flowers, too. You should join your mother in praying for him as well. Chris, something for me? Okay, real quick. This week, when I've had the chance, I've been listening to stuff about Asgore and Toriel while at work. And I have to say that I feel like so many people are getting so close to the issues between Asgore and Toriel, but haven't yet gotten there. And I'm like, oh, you guys are so close. I feel like you guys are all so close to figuring this out. And it's because so many people are like, yeah, there weren't any problems until Des went away. I'm like, no, that's the revelation that Tenna gives, is that the problems had always been there. And that Des's disappearance finally drove a wedge into the cracks of that relationship that maybe could have been repaired but weren't repaired, and that both Toriel and Asgore have gone completely about it the wrong way. Both of them are at fault, and both of them deserve better. And that's what makes it such a difficult scenario, and why they are both sympathetic characters who deserve a massive scolding. Um, Arts, please let me sell flowers tomorrow. Yeah, I need to sell flowers. And the thing that was this is that there's people there actually wanting to buy flowers. Just Asgore's not at the house. Not at the house, not at the shop. Those flowers better be the reincarnation of those dead kids in Undertale, and Fly was actually a nice guy. Nah, we're not getting that. We're absolutely not getting that. But we're going to get flowers with personalities. That's what's going to happen. We're gonna get flowers with. I'm gonna bet we're gonna get flowers with personalities, and yeah, we're. I don't think we're gonna get flowery. We didn't get. We didn't get. Oh crap! Why am I blanking on the guy's name? We didn't get Metaton. we didn't get Metaton. We got instead we got Stanton, Antenna. Your wife's financial support. I wish he'd just not support his you know what. His you know what? One more word and you're soaked, Mr. Allday. Well, one more word. Oh man, Rudy, what a guy. What was I supposed to say, sweetheart? Oh, Rudy, you absolutely. Hey, Christmas, look, you decided to crawl out of their little igloo. That's right. Hey, if you don't support his you know what, that just means we gotta. Okay, so what we now know, going like when we go look at the shop and what we know of what happens at the manor, Asgore's you know what is that he is obsessed with finding Des. And everyone sees him as crazy because he's the guy smoking the joint and being all like, Pepe's free. But Asgore is actually on the money. Des has gone missing, and he's trying to get her back because the little dark crystal or shadow crystal, whatever, has told him, at least when he looks through it, that he can have that happy ending where he's the hero and he's back with his wife and with his kids and the families are back together and just everything is perfect again. All he has to do is find Des. And what he doesn't realize is that he's being manipulated into doing this. Asgore's the Alex Jones of hometown. Vampires on Mars. Oh my gosh. Okay. Fun fact. This has absolutely nothing to do with the topic at hand. But since you bring up Alex Jones, I actually know someone who knew Alex Jones before he ever became internet famous. Before he was internet famous, he was radio infamous in Texas, and she worked at the radio station and studio where they would share booths with him and his people. Because the studios are open, people come in, they do their recordings that either are live or then going to be put up the next day. Radio stuff. And she was dating a guy who hated Alex, and he and Alex hated him. And so one time while she was at work, Alex came in early. Her boyfriend and Alex started having a fight, and they're like, okay, we're going to take this outside. And so they go outside and they square off. And Alex Jones, he's a big guy, got laid out. She said the guy didn't last like 2 punches. Her boyfriend just like came and just like clocked it, like hit him once and then clocked it once. And he went down. And after that, Alex Jones made sure that he was never in the same building as her boyfriend the rest of the time that she was there in Texas, because it was after she broke up with the guy that she then left Texas and came on over to Arizona to pursue a career in education, which is how I got to meet her while I was working as a teacher. So that is my one Alex Jones story. It's not mine. Comes from an old coworker, but yeah, she knew him before he was internet famous. this. And her boyfriend beat him up. Oh my gosh. Okay. You putting chemicals in the water that's turning my freaking wife into necrophiliac. Oh my gosh. Okay, wow. Yeah. But Alex Jones crazy. We know that Asgore's going insane. The thing though is this. I'm going to tell you guys this. I have a video in mind. I've been working details for it for this right here because if I commit to it, it's going to be an insane theory, and I need to make it before Chapter 5 comes out. But effectively, I am going to be utilizing the spider board bit from uh, from Sherlock Holmes' Game of Shadows, and then compare it to what I think Asgore is doing. And one of the reasons why Chris is upset with the whole corkboard stuff is because Chris knows what's going to happen to Asgore if Asgore goes through with this. And Chris is like, no, not my dad. No, please, no. But sacrifices must be made to get us back. And hey, Chris, if all of this pans out, we can save everyone. And I think that Carol is coming at this from a very much the ends justify the means. And personally love I personally love a villain who can who can believe that and actually do stuff that makes it seem like the ends justify the means. Those are horrifying villains because most people have agreed that the ends do not justify the means because of what happens to people along the way, what you do along the way. And I think that Carol is going to end up being one of those villains. And the thing is that because the prophecy has yet to be wrong, it's one of those instances where it's like it looks like Carol's right, whether you like it or not. Ends justify the means. So we're gonna find out. Game of Shadows is one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes movies. Oh, it's such a good movie. The fact that the critics didn't like it, I'm like, you guys just could not enjoy it. Is it as smart as the first Sherlock Holmes? No. Is it fun? Absolutely. Is it witty? Yes. Does it have a good mystery? Yes. I enjoyed it. So, so as you said, Arch, right there, so you missed credit. That's okay. But coming on over here, Noelle, your scene so lovely. You, Chris Israel, should perform sometime. Oh, Toriel. Here's the thing. So stopping this right here, you can see the shock on Noelle's face when this is being offered as an option to her. This is Toriel, I believe, trying to have that olive branch moment of like, hey, so the Dreamers and the Holidays have been separated. Azrael's coming back to town. It would be great if you all would perform together. Like, when there were four of you. And Noelle is stepping back from this because Noelle, for her reasons, which still have yet to be fully elaborated, she has put up a barrier between herself and Chris. On top of that, Noelle has done everything to avoid directly addressing the stuff that happened to Des. And being around Azrael again probably would bring up a lot of bad memories. It makes me wonder if there's also a real divide between her and Azrael. And a little more theory crafting on my part. I think Azrael is going to show up at the end of chapter 5. I don't want him to just show up in chapter 7. He might be saved until chapter 6, but I really, really hope he shows up at the end of chapter 5. Like, it's nighttime, we're going into the next day, to the next week, and Azrael comes home early. And what that would mean by him coming home early is that now you have someone who knows what happened at the shelter and is probably the moment that he realizes what his sibling is getting up to is going to be like, no, 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 no. You are how far into the prophecy? Dude, no. And you could then have a hero who has at a higher level than Chris opposing Chris and Susie throughout their journey, rather than Gerson, who was an overpowered character trying to help them out. You could then have an overpowered character who's meant to be an ally, who is consistently trying to prevent the heroes from progressing. That would be an amazing twist. Uh, Please forgive me for putting this on there, but can you imagine if Tena had HBO and Ezra and Des were watching shows like Game of Thrones? Oh boy, Stormgirl, why, no, no. Save that for your fanfic. Lars, you're wrong. It won't be Azrael that arrives at the end, but the god of hyperdeath. What Major Hassan taking his woman back from the darkness? I want to see Azrael go god of hyperdeath, which is one of the reasons why I'm hoping that he shows up at the end of chapter 5. Because he would be at a high enough level to show off some amazing stuff. Also, while working on this Cruzy video, I came across yet even more evidence as actually to Azrael and Des either being interested in each other or maybe being together. That Tena drops the tidbit that Azrael used to really, really like the green lizard, which a lot of people have interpreted that as that Azrael was the one to get the How to Draw Dragons book. But no, that wasn't. That Azrael didn't get it for himself. He got it for Chris, because Tena says very clearly that Azrael began to like the fiery girl. How's he put it? The fiery sword magicians, and Tena says it's a she. And wait a second here. So in the party, wait a second, who's got some little bit of a fiery motif? A magician wielding a sword. The knight is a magician who wields the sword. Des, is that you? Art says, if Chris and Des were super close, I wonder how close Noelle and Azzy were back then. I believe that they were all pretty close, would be my guess. But I think that Noelle, and this may actually be part of why Noelle is more standoffish, why Noelle doesn't really take much action, why she's more reactive. It could very well be that Noelle was more of the afterthought to all of the friendly shenaniganery that the older kids were getting up to. And so, it, I mean, let me, for the sake of actually having something moving, let me just change this real quick on over here. So, this is what I think. And you guys can tell me if you feel like I'm totally off base or not. But so I think that Azrael and Des brought Chris along very early on their adventures. That Chris has actually been there for a while in the Dark World, and hence knows way more of what's going on. I think that Azrael, Des, and Chris tried really hard to fulfill the prophecy. And what I think changed things and what brought Noelle in to the group. Because from Noelle's recollection, Noelle only really remembers one night. And then again, the context is missing in the conversation between her and Chris in chapter 2. But the implications of her recalling the night when things went wrong, when they went into the forest, was that the implication is that was new for her, that she had never really gone there before or done stuff like that with the older kids or with Chris. And what I think happens is that it got to a point in the prophecy where Azrael and Des were like, the girl, love will come to the girl. And I think that Azrael and Des were very likely in a romantic relationship, but that things were not working out the way that they thought. And I think that what they got to a point in the prophecy where they realized the girl is not Des. It's not one of the three heroes. That the girl could very likely be a fourth individual. And that's like, what if it's Noelle? Because Carol is operating under that assumption. And so I don't think that it might have just been like a Carol, oh yeah, it's my second daughter. It could very well be that it was something that was believed by people beforehand. And so I think that Noelle was roped in because the other kids thought that she was meant to be a part of the prophecy. And so they went through with it, which is why she got brought in. And then what happened that night happened, which we still don't yet know. Stormcrow says, I wouldn't say Noelle was an afterthought per se. I think maybe she was maybe more babied because of Chris. Mark says, maybe Des latched on to Chris, trained them because Noelle needed to be protected, and Chris had to work to get where they are now in terms of skill. Talking to NPCs, Chris was always wanting to hang out with the older kids and would do stuff for them. So Des took advantage of this and Chris to make sure they played their part. I can see that. I can see that. And I think that that's again that fits with what I believe is going on. That Chris was brought on board by the older teens, and yeah, things went wrong. Things went horribly wrong for them once uh, once they decided to bring Noelle on board. Now, of course, this calls into question what is the prophecy really saying about the girl? We don't know. And what we do know is that Susie identifies herself as the girl because the second member of the team of heroes is the girl with the heart crossed with hope, and she takes great pride in that she is that hero. And so Susie interprets the prophecy as that she will be the one that has love come to her. But the others seem to believe that the prophecy indicates that someone else is the girl, in this case, Noelle. And I think that whenever that decision was made, that was how the prophecy was really meant to be read, that 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 it was then determined someone else had to be that other character. That was actually a fourth individual. And the weird route seems to hint at that even stronger as well. So there's a mystery to be played out here. Says the girl is wielding Chris's sword. Yeah, which is interesting because Susie wields her axe, and and so we're so will it be that the girl, whether that be Noelle or Susie, will at one point take Chris's sword to do stuff, or is the main weapon that Susie's meant to get eventually? Will it be a sword? I actually don't think that Susie's meant to have a sword, especially because so as the story goes on, all of the optional bosses, if you beat them, you get an item, and each of those items, whether offensive or defensive, give you a serious boost to your abilities. And you can make your characters really strong by just stacking those items. There are 6 optional bosses, supposedly going into chapter 7, 6 optional bosses, you can have 2 special items per character, which means that if you want to go looking for all the optional bosses going into chapter 7, you can have Chris, Susie, and Ralsei be absolutely stacked with all of their amazing items. And one of those amazing items is Gerson's axe. And so will Susie give up that awesome axe I mean, you can choose, you can equip her with whatever you want, but I'm going to be very interested in seeing if there's a weapon option for Susie that really makes the axe from Gerson irrelevant. Stormgirl says, now I've seen a severe curiosity for Chris's past now more than ever since the therapy scene in chapter 3. Well, my question is, does that happen after Des disappeared or before Chris got adopted? The therapy scene in chapter 3? You'll have to refresh my memory there. Because I'm not recalling that. We are neglecting the true hero of Deltarune, and no, it's not Susie. What will our boy Birdly do when the hero's calling comes to hometown? Will the Alpha Gamer help Hyperdeath? I think that our awesome gamer boy is. I think that I think that I think that Birdly, because if you go the weird route, Birdly's taken out of commission. If you go the normal route, what I think that Birdly is going to relearn his lesson from chapter 2 in chapter 5, and we're going to get to see kind of like Birdly ascendant, like Birdly as he was meant to be, and as the more considerate fellow and friend, an actual hero who is who's going to go on and who's going to go on and do amazing things. That's what I foresee. Exactly what those will be, how he will do it, don't know yet. Okay, so I've been rambling my way through Deltarune here for a little while. Let's go wrap up the scene from the church, and then we'll shift gears on over to the writing lesson, and then we'll call it good for tonight, so that way I can get back to what I got to do and keep on working on that video. All right. The true hero who had to be talked down from causing the roaring unknowingly. Ah, yes. Bergley. He shall be known as Bergley. Yeah, Chris will sing swears. Yes, yes, Chris will sing swears. And Susie will help too. I'm going to force Chris to go on a date with Birdly, but knowing Toby, the date will take an emotional turn when Birdly doesn't know how to handle someone genuinely wanting to be friends. Yep. Also, because I think that all choices are going to get torn away from us by whatever happens at the fair. Des would be so proud. Those swears, man. Oh yeah. But going back again, I love how Des's instruments are all really expensive and very dented. All right, gathered enough clues. Yeah. Clues acquired. So here's so I guess to round it off here, my working guess for what's going to happen in chapter 5 around the festival. This is what I'm expecting. No matter what route you chose, and no matter who is going to the fair with whom, I think it's all going to come down to the Ferris wheel, and that someone is going to, and that ultimately, no matter what, the pair that is going into the Ferris wheel is going to be Chris and Noelle, no matter what route you choose. My reason for saying that is because since we are constantly told that the ending will be the same no matter what you choose, and we've kind of taken that to be either, okay, the ending of the chapter or the ending of the whole game, the thing is that by now we see that our choices have a monumental shift on characters and on how things turn out. How is it then that our choices don't matter when they clearly have a ripple effect and various ripples depending on which route you choose or what you do within that route? So, that how exactly then can you say that your choices don't matter? I think is that it's all going to lead to that Ferris wheel moment. Chris and Noel up in the Ferris wheel. If you've done the weird route, you're going to get a weird route consequences for the Ferris wheel ride, which will probably be another really, really eerie moment of Chris probably trying to free Noel. And then if you choose, proceed, proceed. I think there will be a kiss. I think that the proceed for chapter 5 in the weird route is Chris kissing Noel. Susie sees it, and Susie's heart gets broken. That's the weird route. Normal route. Susie is all like, the Ferris wheel counts for something. The Ferris wheel is good. Chris, get into the Ferris wheel with Noel to repair your relationship right there. And Noel's gonna be like, wait, what? And Susie's like, yeah, you got this, guys. And Chris and Noel go in, and Noel is just going to be all like, but I thought that Susie wanted to be with me. What what's happening now? And there's going to be dialogue options. You could try to smooth things over or whatever, but Noel is not going to take it well. And Noel's heart is going to be broken to some degree or another, initiating a split. What's more is that here's the thing. If Chris and Noel are together in the Ferris wheel and Susie's alone, this means that Susie is now open to retaliation from a character like Caddy. And now I like Caddy, but Caddy doesn't like Susie. Caddy wants revenge on what she thinks Susie's doing to Noel. And I can see Caddy pulling a lighter stunt along the same vein as oh crud, Carrie. When the whole dumping of blood on Carrie at the prom, I don't see that happening. But I see Caddy Jockington and maybe even others in their class trying to do something to Susie. Like, yeah, you know what, Susie, this is just getting weird. We don't like what's going on here. And there's a confrontation of some sort. When the confrontation is happening, Noel has a moment to put a stop to it. And in both weird route and normal route, weird route, she just kissed Chris. She's with Chris now. That option of being with Susie is done. So Chris will step in to end it, and Noel will just be watching. And maybe you leave. Or in the normal route, because of the misunderstanding, Noel's heart is broken. Noel leaves the situation. She's like, I can't handle this. This is too much. Abandoning Susie. So Chris has got to step in and put a stop to all of this. In either scenario, whether it's Noel or Susie's heart getting broken there on the Ferris wheel, Chris ends up having to help out Susie. And then with Susie for the events that lead us onwards to I'm guessing to the next Dark World. Because I think that the events of the fair are not going to be how the chapter ends. It could be how the chapter ends. But I think that the events of the fair are going to be before we get to the Dark World. It's my guess. That is my guess. Could be wrong, but even let's say if we even take this scenario and put it at the end of the chapter, it still works as something that's at the end of the chapter. Again, one way or the other, someone's heart gets broken, and you're just like, oh my. But the reason why I feel like it would happen now more at the beginning of the chapter is because we need to experience what the fallout is in the Dark World. And I don't know if Toby is going to hold on to that kind of a fallout for chapter 6 when he could initiate it easily in chapter 5. Now, that's just my guess as a storyteller. Toby's got his own way of doing things. I've already called out many theories, which Toby has easily shot down and burned with his storytelling. So I could be totally off. I could be totally off base here, but That's what I'm currently thinking for the fair in Chapter 5. Stormcrow says, "What kind of bands would Des listen to in our world if humans didn't go extinct in the world of Deltarune? Until proven otherwise, I'm going to say humans got wiped out, uh, uh, but only a chosen few were spared." Well, thinking about which groups she would listen to, I think she would listen to Metallica. I think that Des is a Metallica girl. I also can see her listening to Chumbawamba. Um, let's see here. You know what? You know what? Let's also just say, and maybe this is because I've watched Superman now twice. Maybe she would also be listening to oh crud, the name of the group, the Killer Crabjoys. So yeah, that's what I think that I think that Des would be straddling that line of heavy metal and punk rock. Cat fight in Chapter 5. We want it. Toby, the people want it. Give us that. Des would be so proud. Seeing those swears, man. Normal route, Noel gets the chair. Weird route, Noel becomes an abused girlfriend. Poor girl simply cannot catch a break. Yeah, again, I feel like yeah, things are just not going to go well for Noel. And I firmly believe it's either her or Susie who gets their heart broken. No matter depending on the route that you choose. And sorry, Noel, I just love Susie so much. I can't break Susie's heart that way. I'll let someone else. I'll let someone else do that if that happens to be the actual way that it goes. The one thing that Asgore and Toriel share in common, they know to embarrass Chris in their own way. Oof, Green Day might be a thing. You know what? Des would listen to Green Day. Azrael would say Green Day is his favorite, and Des would make fun of him for that. Circus says, "Okay, Lars, I seriously want to know your thoughts on this. Is everything that Burger Pants is going through just a pure gag, or do you see a bigger point with his whole storyline?" Stormcrow, that's an excellent question. My response to that is that it is in his story is meant to be more funny, but it is also it's meant to be mostly funny. Like it's his story is there to give you a good laugh because this guy's just too dumb. It also gives us some insights into what the older graduates of hometown have been up to, and it probably gives us a better idea of why Azrael left hometown to support rather than support everything that's been going on there. I think that yeah, it's just one of the main reasons why Azrael left. So it's funny, it's a little bit of world building, but Pizza Pants also his whole obsession with love begins to be part of a much greater web of references to romance. Now, this might sound really disconnected, but I think that Pizza Pants' story is connected to the Cuptans chasing the Mizzles, and specifically like the crazy like Princess Mizzle, whatever her face is. I can't remember her name right now off the top of my head, but there's the really big Mizzle that you can go up against, and that part of sparing her and recruiting her actually involves being very chivalrous and declaring your love for her. So we've got declaring love for a princess. We got Pizza Pants in his doomed love story. Meanwhile, we've got some crazy tension, possibly sexual tension between Caddy and Braddy. We've got Birdley wanting to be we got Birdley who wants to have his own harem. We have references to other romances from stories like Dragon Blazers. We have the hinted at romance between Azrael and Des. And And when you start bringing all of this together, and remember, the prophecy says that love comes to the girl. Love, love, love. Are we talking love a la Undertale, as in the level of violence gain the power? Are we talking love, the power of friendship? Or, as this game hints at way more strongly than Undertale ever got, love the romance. There's all these romances happening. We have Undyne and Alphys. We got just the beginnings, buddings of a friendship that obviously is prompted by them having feelings for each other. We've got Asgore and his doomed marriage with Toriel. We've got Toriel liking Sans. And so we've got all of this love stuff going around. Romance is important to Deltarune. The interesting thing is that where Pizza Pants falls in all of this is that you have a man who desperately wants to be loved and isn't getting it. We have Ezra, and that then is paired off with with a potential romance between Azrael and Des, which ended in tragedy. Asgore and Toriel's romance, which ended tragically, but not because of any supernatural causes, but because there were already problems in that relationship. We've got Caddy and Brady again with that tension going on right there. Caddy crushing on Noelle crushing on Susie, Chris and Susie, Birdley wanting a harem. It seems as though there's really not a whole lot of romance that's actually though going over well. There's a lot of potential for heartbreak. There's a lot of heartbreak currently going on. It's like, well, where's the love? And that's the thing. Where's the love? Love comes to the girl. We don't fully know what that is. The weird route, Carol's plan, suggests power. Love is power, level of violence, gain energy, gain strength, gain skills, gain weapons, power. The power to do the stuff you want for the people you love. That is love. And that's how Carol rules, because she does rule. She doesn't just govern, she rules hometown and rules her house, rules her family. But that seems rather cold and calculated. That doesn't feel warm or natural or organic. Whereas exploring true romance against the potential of tragedy with characters like Chris and Susie, for instance, and seeing where they might go against all odds. In a story where so much romance has come to naught, it keeps coming up because I think that the key is romance. Is it going to be manufactured, though, or is it going to be a choice? And that's I think one of the big questions of Deltarune. And that really calls into question the idea of choice within the story, your freedom, your ability to do what you want to do. So, man, there you have it. I know I'm not quite saying it as I should, which is one of the reasons why I need to take the time to fully dedicate my. Well, it's why I need to dedicate some time to be fully committed to write down a script, get my thoughts out there, edit it down so that way I can say exactly what needs to be said. Because, again, looking through these most recent chapters, it is clear that love is critical to Deltarune. Stormer says, okay, just you wait. Chapter 6 is going to be the chapter where all the hidden pain the town's desperately tries too hard just come to the surface, and Pizza Pants will make us cry harder than we thought. Oh yeah, I feel like this latest chapter 4, actually makes Pizza Pants a genuinely sympathetic and interesting character. All right. So, with saying that about romance, let me then actually pull up our lesson for this evening, and we'll then uh, wrap it up from there. Just gotta give a chance to load up. This will give me a chance to take a drink of water. Ah, good water. Keep yourselves hydrated, folks. It's still summertime here. All right, romance. It's all about time. I don't know if you ever saw those commercials. Family isn't about time. Romance. It's all about time because romance absolutely is. So tonight's goal for this lesson: learn learn how a well-written romance is all about the time that you put into the couple, both on the written word from the pages and so forth, the word count, and also in the time within the story. Those are two separate things. One is about word count, one is about the time that those words cover. And that is very important to consider when it comes to dedicating the right amount of time that you need to your romantic pairs. Now then, just to like bring this up right here, these are all things that are born out of speeding up a romance or of taking too long with a romance. I have the background right here, the Rent a Girlfriend, because Rent a Girlfriend absolutely overstayed its welcome. Oh, it's so frustrating. So, some of the dumb things that come from rushed romances are opposites instantly connect. While opposites definitely do attract, and that's always fun to read and to see in real life, opposites don't always instantly attract and connect. And it's really dumb to see that. Especially because you're like, wait, why do these characters even like each other? Yeah, it looks kind of cute, but it makes no sense. One night stands become true love. That's dumb. I hate seeing that. This is a trope that's becoming more and more popular now. All you need is love to overcome your personal problems. I do not like seeing this in a story. This is a horrible thought, especially because too many people in real life believe it, and then they get themselves into even worse issues. Simping works out. Simping never works out. Don't simp. Obsessions with other people is a healthy thing. Obsessing over another person is not healthy. Been there, done that. Learned from my experience. It is dumb. I don't want to see it in more stories, unless it is a creep. It's absolutely fine if you write someone within the story who's a known creep, who is overly obsessed with someone. That's okay because that is accurate. The faster you steam the rice, the better. AKA getting to the mattress mumbo, the sex. No, while steaming the rice is always fun to see, well, depending on the person reading. That goes from audience member to audience member. The story is not about how fast you can steam your rice. It is about getting quality rice. We want to steam our rice the right way. And these are all things, and this is not a comprehensive list. This is just the beginning of all the issues that come from an improperly paced and timed romantic story. And we do not want your stories ending up like the garbage dumpster fire that is the bane of all anime and manga. That is Rent a Girlfriend. For crying out loud, I'd rather watch Pui Pui Poemi, which is awful. It is awful. I would rather watch Pui Pui Poemi than sit through an entire season of Rent a Girlfriend. And yes, that comes from a guy who's already read enough of the manga ahead of time to know that it's just all more of just a dumpster fire. Yeah. So we have to ask ourselves a big question right here because there's a lot of people who actually take umbrage with this. Again, they want their rice steamed as fast as possible. Why does romance take time? As much as people like me love stuff like love at first sight, the truth of the matter is that any good and solid relationship requires an investment of effort and time. That goes for real life as it does for fiction. And the thing is this, we all know it. We instinctively know it. And even though plenty of people, yes, like to go for the cheap and easy stuff in the romance section that just gets to the hot and heavy as fast as possible, deep down, people crave realistic relationships in their fiction. Like, even if they want to go and consume as much smut as possible, even those people love to be refreshed by a good, positive romance. I've seen this happen time and time again. When if you go and you explore all of the forums for stuff like uh, "Please Don't Tease Me, Miss Nagatoro," or "Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity," those are stories where people are all like, "Man, after like a week of hentai, I just come around to this." I'm just like, guys, too much information for one thing. For another, too much information. I did not need to know that. People, with as much as debauchery as some invite into their lives, people crave positive, healthy relationships. But because we consume so much media that presents toxic relationships as a good thing to us, a lot of people get confused about what does it really mean to have a positive, healthy romance. And the answer is that a positive, healthy romance amongst so many things, which is like making the characters equal, having actual respect. Again, not just jumping to the naughty bits as quickly as possible, but actually taking time to flesh out these characters. It's all about the time. Allow us to get to know who these characters are. Give us the time to build up the relationship. Give us the time to get to see what the relationship is like, both within and outside of the context of romance. Popping back on over here to the series dealing with Mikadono Sisters is a breeze. The very first season is all about rebuilding the relationship between the three sisters and developing their relationship with you. Yes, there is a romantic angle to it because all three sisters end up crushing on the boy. And that's part of the rom-com element to it, and it's fun. But at the heart of it, it is about these sisters who their father again has tarnished their relationship with each other. It's about them rebuilding that relationship, coming to love and understand each other once again, and that healthy connection between three sisters allows them then to actually have a very positive interaction amongst themselves when it comes to competing for you. Rather than being toxic and weird and, hey, what if we just all went polyamorous right here? No, these are three sisters who respect each other, who love each other, who all just happen to like the same guy, and who now need to navigate that. And once that has been established, the story can then move forward with properly developing actual romance opportunities between those three sisters and you, and helping you to overcome his issues to the point where he can see things more clearly, the situation that he's in, and realize these girls like me, and I think I like at least one of them. And maybe I like all of them romantically one way or another. And that's, oh, wow, that's a lot to handle. How am I supposed to handle? If you go that route, if you want to actually, for instance, tease a harem or utilize a harem to its fullest, you have to take your time and give all of these characters, all the different relationships involved in this multifaceted situation, time to properly develop and become what they need to become in order to be the most positive and healthy that they can be. Because otherwise, it's just gratuitous. That's the problem with most harem stories. It's that it's gratuitous. It's more about, hey, can we get the guy or the girl with as many people as possible and make it quote unquote okay? And a story like dealing with Mikodono Sisters is a breeze says, okay, then rather than just leaning into the gratuitous element, what if we actually tried to explore this from a much more positive and healthy angle? Which means then we need to develop these characters. Time. Time invested into getting to know who each one of the sisters is and who you is, and then building up their individual relationships between Nico and Miwa and Kazuki, and then between Kazuki and you, and Nico and you, and Miwa and you. And then what is that relationship like when three sisters all knowingly like the same guy? Those are different elements, different sides, different shades of this relationship. And in order to be positive about it all, to be healthy with the situation that is, societally speaking, rather messed up, you need to take the time. So, hence again, why time is so important. And that goes for whether you're dealing with a harem situation or you're just dealing with a couple one on one. Susie and Chris, Susie and Noel, or Chris and Noel, or any other pairing. You need to invest the time in order to see how these characters grow individually and together, and how their romance actually works and culminates by the end of the story. Culminating meaning that it leads to that moment of catharsis where you're like, this is why I was invested. Like for instance, in Pirates of the Caribbean, that Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann finally get married. Will is, for all intents and purposes, dead, but he's given that one day every 10 years. What will he do with it? He will spend that one day with Elizabeth and give her a family, even though he can't be there. And we then see her with her son at the very end, and Will 10 years later sailing into Greece. That's the catharsis, that even though Will is dead and cursed, that their love transcends the curse. That's the catharsis. That's the culmination. Uh, and so that's just there's just one, I think, very good example about why you care about the romance by the end. Pride and Prejudice, uh, with Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy getting together. Why do you care? It's not just because of the witty banter between the two of them. You care because these are two hurt people who overcome their pain to get together and also overcome their prejudices to come together, breaking all sorts of norms in the best way possible that doesn't get them banned from society, but ends up making them exemplary to society. That's awesome. That's why we care. That's where their story leads us to. That's what we want to see happen with romances, that it goes somewhere, that it means something by the end. If it's just slamming two characters together because, again, you want to steam your rice, that's not a good reason. That's not good romance. And so it all comes down to the time that we spend with them. Now, this is where I need to divide two things because they are not the same. Time on the page and time in the story. Time on the page. It's hard to believe that a romance can just jump from the meet cute to two characters getting married within 10 pages. Yes, I know that Anna and Hans tried to pull that off, but we know how that worked out in Frozen. So you tend to want to spend a good amount of time with these characters in order to properly develop their romance. Now, talking about page count and word count, I want you guys to think about this. This is subjective. This is subjective to the story. But I want you to think about, how many words or pages does it take for the protagonist to ask out the person that they like? How many words or pages does it take to get to the first kiss? How many pages or words does it take for characters to get together, to move in together, to get married, to start a family? It depends on the story, but you need to have an idea of how much time you need to put into the story, or on the page, I should say. Like, okay, how many words does it take to get those characters together? And for example, in my book, Notice Me Senpai, which is a novelette, so not even 20,000 to 40,000 words, this is around 11,000 words. I wanted my protagonist, Mindy, to not get together with her crush, but rather have it basically be the confession of, I like you. Raphael, I like you. Will you accept my pie? And Spiros me senpai. So my question was, how long does it take for a character to deliver a pie? And yes, I could easily spin out that idea into a 60,000 page book, sell it, and be all like, here you go, here's your next teenage rom com, and it's a bestseller. But instead, I went for far more accurate. There's like, no, even for a quirky girl like Mindy, 10,000 words. 10,000 words from she's got a crush on Raphael to giving the pie to Raphael and letting Raphael know that she likes him. 10,000 words. There you go. Now then, you could, for instance, like working up to the first kiss, you could open up the story with the character and be like, I'm going to kiss my crush, leaning in. Oh, oh my gosh, I should have brushed my teeth. Oh, my breath smells so bad. Oh, I'm sweating. I'm sweating so bad. I missed her lips and I kissed her nose. Oh, I die. And then she grabs the guy and then returns the kiss, and it's super cute. And that's all like on the very first page. Hallelujah. Okay, so you did it in one page. Well, guess what now? You now need to invest the time in getting us to like these characters who obviously like each other romantically. One page isn't going to convince us. We need more than one page. So true. You can work up that first kiss with one page, very first page of your book. But that's not enough. You need to put in more. And yeah, I know that's frustrating to some people, but that's the way that it is. Now then, there's time in the story. It's often impossible to capture every single moment that your characters are going through, which means you also can't capture every single moment of their love. No exquisite love. So this means that you need to choose those moments that are most important. This means that you're going to have to implement some time skips. You might also have to implement some shared memories in order to, like, let's say, are starting off their story in the middle of their relationship. They've already gotten together, or they've already known that they like each other, and they're building up to that moment where they're going to get together. You're not starting off with the meet cute. This means that you're going to have to utilize some shared memories, as well as those concentrated moments where they're on the page together. And this is where things get tricky, because it's not just the word count that matters, but also what's all the development that's happening within the story for these characters to get together. Are you utilizing the whole trope of childhood friends? What is that like, getting them together? Enemies to lovers? What kind of time do you need to put in to make that happen? Coworkers on the verge of starting a fling? That's another. An already married couple? Each one of these and more presents its own interesting question that you need to consider. How much time do I need to put in, either directly on the page or that's implied through shared memories, to help firmly establish this story and make it work? So here's a way to think about it. And seeing how there's not many people right now watching this, I think I'm going to come back and do a concentrated video on this later, because here's an idea. This is something that here's a different way of thinking about writing romance. Romance is like planting, raising, and harvesting fruit. There's a proper time to plant in order for your plants to grow. You need to water them, but not too often, because that gets overwhelming. You need to prune the weeds, add fertilizer to the soil, and then the time comes that you have to harvest. If you don't harvest at the right time, you either pluck that fruit before it's ripened and it's nasty, or it gets too ripe and it gets spoiled and rots. And I've got the image of watermelon right here, because if any of you have ever planted and raised watermelon, that's a tricky plant. Watermelon, as opposed to an apple, you're like, ooh, the apple's looking really good. Or oranges, I raise oranges. And with oranges are very easy to realize, yes, that orange is ready to pick. You can tell when the orange is ready to pick. Watermelons, on the other hand, you don't really know. You're like, okay, like, it requires some knowledge, know-how, a little bit of trial and error. Watermelons may die on the vine, or what have you. Or you might be like, maybe this watermelon isn't ready yet. You leave it on a vine for 1 or 2 days more than it should, and then it starts getting soft underneath, and then spoils. It's nasty when that happens. Writing a romance is very much the same way like cultivating watermelon or any other kind of fruit. You need to understand the time that you need to put in and when to act at certain times for the romance to grow properly and be what it needs to be. If you don't put in the time, it's going to be like spoiled fruit or fruit that's not ripe. In both cases, usually very nasty. And people know it. People know when a romance is either underbaked or overbaked, is either too rotten or not yet ripe. People know it when they see it, and it's our job as writers to know our story or know our characters well enough to know them like a fruit, what season to plant that romance, how to cultivate that romance, and when to start bringing out the fruits of that romance. And that's the difficulty. It's one of the reasons why so many people rely too often on formulas because formulas make it easy. But I want you to throw out those formulas. Go the route of planting, of sculpting, of growing these romances because when you are more flexible, the story and the relationships start becoming way more organic, and that gives them the possibility of becoming way more fulfilling. And the reason why we as Camille's Harem always go for the higher bar is because we want people to clear that bar. We don't want the people that we're trying to help become authors to just go for subpar stuff. We want you to truly succeed and do something amazing, which is why we aim for this higher stuff. So throw out the formulas and embrace the crazy, wild uncertainty of learning how to grow your romances, or as I also like to say, sculpt them, like a potter going at a block of clay and getting that perfect pot, or trying to sculpt a statue. It takes a lot of work. You can't just smush stuff together like you're shipping. It takes a lot of effort. So, your assignments is this: think about the couple you are writing or want to write. One, know how much time you need to progress their relationship to what the story requires. Two, what should happen within that time? And three, plot out how much you'll need to write. And I have right here an example of what I'm currently working on with Whitefire. One of the relationships within the Whitefire series is that of Asgore and Silandria. So, in order for them to become a bonded couple by a certain point in the story, which is a year and a few months between the time that they first meet and the time that they become bonded, in that time, they have to meet in the middle of a battle. Narscore helps to save Silandria and takes Silandria on over to June's, where he tries to help her get back to her home world of Draconia. During that time, they travel the realms of imagination looking for her world. Thornbeard, a dragon from Draconia, eventually manages to reach Silandria and kidnaps her, taking her back to Draconia, which prompts Narscore, who now finally sees the through line how to get to her home world, infiltrates her planet and hires Whitefire to help him rescue her. Then, of course, there's the rescue operation and the fight against Thornbeard. So there's a lot. This is a big story right here, and this is one of the reasons why I have not yet read this large novel, because the relationship between Narscore and Silandria actually stumped me. I didn't know how much time I needed to give to their story. I got lost. I honestly did. And that's why I haven't finished that book yet, because the romance derailed me. The romance is very central to some of the big moments of the book, and not just to that book, but to stuff that happens later on. There are repercussions of these two characters trying to get together. And so this then led me to be like, okay, then, so I need to better understand and write out their story. So I am currently working on a pre story for Whitefire, which, looking at it, I need at least 200,000 words to cover how Narscore and Silandria meet, how they start developing a friendship, how that friendship grows to romance. In the meantime, trying to find Silandria's homeworld, all the difficulties there. Thornbeard kidnapping Silandria and bringing her back to Draconia, and how Narscore is going to be able to trace her back to her homeworld, and how he intends to get there, and why he doesn't just bring fire and brimstone to Draconia because he could. Why then does he just infiltrate and work with a local Whitefire? It just why would he go about it that way? Well, there's reasons to that, and I need to make sure that I cover all those reasons in order to make better sense of that. How Silandria is able to hold out against Stormbeard, how she resists him in the book Whitefire and waits for him, and how the two of them manage to meet, uh, each utilizing their own means to go up against Thornbeard. That part of the story, which is just one of three main stories within the book Whitefire. Whitefire is going to be a big novel. It's going to be anywhere between 350,000 to 400,000 words. It's going to be huge, which is not which is not suggested or encouraged by most publishers, but I'm an insane person and I love telling big stories. And so for their third of the book, at least 120,000 words to tell the story of how Silandria resists Thornbeard and does everything she can to fight her way back to Narscore, and how Narscore is trying to get his way to her and rescue her alongside Whitefire. So looking at this right here, I've got 320,000 words to write in order to make this romance work out. Holy cow, 320,000 words to cover over a year's worth of time. Can I do it? I can. I have my vague outline right here, and I now know what kind of time I'm working with here, so that way I can better structure all the things I need to put into the story to make the romance work. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that for those of you who are interested in writing romance, that you really take this to heart. I know that this can be rather overwhelming, especially because most of us just want to get into writing the romance, and we feel like we understand our characters well enough. Trust me, these exercises and this way of thinking will really, really help you out, because I thought I could just do it all on my own. And again, the romance derailed my book. So I speak from experience when I say that this is a better way of going about it. Now then, there's the lesson. I think that's a record for me getting through a lesson that quickly. So, with all that said, everyone, thank you so much for making it here to this live stream tonight. I am going to check off, like I said, this live stream wouldn't go for as long as the others because there's work to be done. I got to finish that cruisy analysis video. Ayo, it's going to be awesome. And if you just happen to stumble across the stream but have made it to this point, hey, awesome. Glad to have you here. I hope that you will subscribe and click the bell icon so that way you can be notified for when the cruisy analysis drops. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And for tonight, this was fun. Hannah, great to see you here. And I hope that you have a great day as well. And to everyone else, a great day, morning, night, wherever you are at. And until the next video, y'all, cheers.